Welcome to the Bromley Adult Education College Digital Drop-In Podcast, getting you back to work with confidence.
Hello, I'm Jill Collier and welcome to episode 15 of the Digital Drop-In Podcast. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Charles Tappin. After retiring from a professional career 8 years ago, Charles wanted some part-time work and has extended his skills to include sales and has now moved on to working in the educational and indeed the hospitality sector. Charles is working on an ad hoc basis in one of our local schools as an invigilator. So I think we'll start there, Charles. Hello.
Hello.
So I know you do various little jobs to keep your brain active and to keep your body active and dare I say it, earn a little bit of pin money along the way. I'm so interested in a lot of the different things you do, Charles, but could you explain how you got this job in a local school as an invigilator? What even does that mean? So how did you get this job to begin with?
A friend of mine who used to work in the same profession as I did worked at that school, and he introduced me and informed me about what was involved in being an invigilator. I hadn't really considered it, but it enabled me to earn some extra money, as I say, in order to pursue my sales career.
Lovely. And so you heard of this job by chance, really?
Yep.
Although, if you get the taste for it, if you go online and look for invigilator jobs in the London Borough of Bromley, I don't say they all come up in the London Borough of Bromley. Sometimes it's just within London as well, but there are plenty of jobs out there because of its very nature. It's not a full-time job and it is ad hoc.
Exactly.
There is many positions available. So what is required of an invigilator?
Effectively, you've got to be responsible, got to turn up on time, be reasonably organised. To a degree, there is a need to have some level of knowledge about IT at the school I work at,
right,
because they have a large SEN department, and consequently some of them have additional services.
Right.
They have access to laptops or what they call Claro reads, but there's additional training in relation to, you can be a reader, a scribe, but effectively you're there to manage the exam process for children and ensure that a level of discipline and order is kept, and they're given the right opportunity to hopefully successfully pass the exams.
Yes, so I think that's the key to it. Some people will never have heard of an invigilator. So
No.
It basically is somebody that oversees an exam.
Yep.
And they have to have no knowledge about that subject, i.e. if it's a subject in French, you shouldn't really be able to interact and give them answers to the questions.
Ideally you wouldn't do anyway.
No.
So you're not part of the education system, you're independent of that.
Absolutely.
To ensure that it's dealt with appropriately.
So as an invigilator, you will just simply be there, as you say, to maintain order, make sure no copying is going on, no cheating is going on. What sort of age groups, out of interest, do you do all of the...
I'm at secondary school.
Secondary school.
So you do what they call year 11 mocks and the real exams, and similarly with the A-level students.
Right. Is there, and you may or may not know this, but is there a ratio of how many invigilators to how many children, or is it almost one invigilator and they only give you as many students as is allowed?
There is a ratio that's set in stone when you're in a large group, but some of the invigilating you're doing one-on-ones.
Right.
So I might be in a separate room with an individual who needs somebody who can write for him or who can
Right.
read in certain areas. You've got to know what you can and can't read. You can't if it's a maths exam, you can't interpret the symbols for them. But there's I think it's called a JCHQ. Forgive me if I got the letters wrong, but it's a booklet which identifies all the what an invigilator can do, and that should be with you on hand when you're in the exam room.
Thinking of a more standard invigilator rather than looking at the special needs. In general, and this is probably where they would start you, it's basically just walking into a bog standard situation. Are you as an invigilator responsible for starting their time, telling them to turn their... So there is no teacher or anybody else of authority in the classroom?
They wouldn't be allowed to. They can come in and introduce their children to make sure you've got the right candidates, but they can't take any involvement.
No.
So you set the room up accordingly.
Right,
so you've got to have the desks will be positioned so
yes,
far apart.
Yes, I think they have to be it's like a metre apart or...
Metre 25 or whatever.
Yes.
And that's already done for you.
Yes.
But you have the signage, making sure that's in place. That you're responsible for holding on to those exam papers and putting them out on the tables. You might have a varied group in there, so some children will be doing a different exam to others. Right. You've got the start times, the finish times, you work out whether they've got extra time.
Yes.
And you're responsible for that, and starting the exam process, telling them what they can and can't do, what they can have on them, and ensuring that that's the case as they enter into the room.
How many years have you been doing this, Charles? I mean, as in the first time, I mean, did you feel I would feel a bit nervous, I think, the first time.
Yeah, very much so, but there are other invigilators there that you can talk to, and obviously there's an exams officer who will give instructions and assist you, and there's a lot of training as well.
So what training are you required to do to A, walk into a school as an adult in a juvenile situation, and B, what specific training for being an invigilator?
Right, I mean, obviously you need to be DBS checked, which means you're going through the police records to make sure you're of sound character.
And do they pay for that, or do you have to come in with your DBS check?
They pay for that. You give them their details. There is a rolling. You can have it on a rolling basis, where there's two. I'm not quite sure.
No, don't worry about the specifics of it. But yes, I mean, as a teacher here, we have to be DBS checked.
Yeah, but I don't have to apply each year, so long as I've been in that process.
Yes.
And they store that. It's sent to you. You hold that record, but they have access to it.
Yes. So that's the first hurdle, if you like. You need to have a clean DBS check. Yes. Right. So assuming
that goes through smoothly.
Then they invite you in for additional training, or?
It was a few years back. There was additional training one-on-one. But you have to do on a regular update basis. Yes. So policies and procedures for the particular school you've got to know about. Yes. So they'll send that out to you, and a lot of that is done online. But each year they'll have something like keeping children safe in education. They'll give additional courses which you access through various websites, and you have to complete them, and you have to get 100% in some of those tests that follow on. Yeah. You can do it as many times as you like.
Yes.
It just takes you a bit longer to make sure you get it correct.
Sure. Okay. No, so that's interesting. So yes, you have to complete the annual training like you do in so many jobs, just to make sure both your knowledge is up to date, and indeed the school has got the appropriate information for you.
Yeah.
So you're in the classroom, or you're in the exam room, I should say, and you are being an invigilator. You are checking the timings, potentially giving them a countdown towards the end. You say 15 minutes before the end, or something.
5 minutes before normally.
5 minutes, so that they know. Okay. What makes you do this? Is it enjoyable? Is it fulfilling? Is it rewarding? What is the carrot that keeps you going back?
Of all the work I do, because I do various jobs, it's the one which can be rewarding, particularly when you're dealing with the children I deal with, that then they come from varied backgrounds, to ensure that they realise there's a level of discipline, but you're not there as an enemy. You're there to help and support them as best you can. So I find it more interesting the more I have to do, because the times when you're sat there and just monitoring the way the kids are behaving, which most of the time they're fine, I find quite tedious because I'm more hands-on. But it gives you opportunities to sit and reflect on other aspects of your life whilst you're waiting for the exam to finish. But
because you do have to have your eyes open,
of course
watching
you do.
them all the time. You can't
do other
go
work.
off and do marking or do something. No, absolutely.
And obviously you haven't got access to your mobile phones, and you're there just to ensure that the process is going through properly.
So it can be a little bit tedious or
Very
boring
much so.
if nothing is going on.
If you've got long exams and you're not having an active involvement, you're not reading, scribing, and you don't have any things to do. Same for the children.
Yes.
If they're not able to finish the exam, or they finish early, they've got to sit there in silence for maybe an hour, 2 hours.
Yes.
And they tend to fidget.
Yes. So have you encountered any sort of problems? I mean, or if there is a problem, do you have a point of call, that you can go to? Or if you don't have access to your mobile phone, you obviously can't phone anyone. How do you get word out? Would you know?
Oh, you take your mobile phone with you,
right?
So you can access the exams officer,
right,
who can come in and assist you,
right?
Who can get head to the department or whatever that's required. Right. But you wouldn't have that permanently on. You won't refer to. You'll only use it for that purpose.
I'm with you.
So
right.
and as I say, there will be invariably, especially even in the main hall or something like that, there may be 3 or 4 invigilators.
Right, okay.
So one of you can leave because the children might have toilet breaks, or they might have forgotten something, or there might be a query that you need to address in the paper. But you can't give any advice to the children direct in relation to what questions to answer, how long to spend on each question. That's all forbidden.
Yes, you're not there in an advisory capacity. My understanding of invigilating is that there's certain times of the year when there are exams. I mean, there's ad hoc exams, I know, but in general, exams come, let's say, in January and then May through to June or something like that.
Yeah.
So would you say it's quite a seasonal job, or could you be doing this all day, every day?
Oh, I wouldn't want to do it all day, every day, for sure. And it is seasonal, but the good side about it is it's flexible. You can choose which exams to work. I will only work if it's not viable for me to go there just for a short morning exam. I'd go there for the full day.
Yes.
Because you only get paid for when you're working.
Yes.
And
so are you sort of emailed a timetable or something and says this is when we need invigilators, and you respond to that?
Exactly. You fill in when you want to make yourself available.
Right.
And if you have a relationship with the exams officer, she or he will know exactly what suits your needs and try and do the best to accommodate everybody.
So I'm going to ask a tricky one here. How do you get paid? So it's only very intermittent, this money, so it's not something you could potentially think of as an income on a weekly or monthly basis. It's going to maybe 2 or 3 times a year potentially. What happens from there? You
have to invoice them.
Right, so you invoice them.
Yeah, and this is partly why I'm doing the current course, because I was doing it on my phone as best I could with different sorts of software and finding it very difficult to update. Right. But since then I've actually got a laptop and I can create an appropriate document now and send it through. But you have to send it in before the first week of the month in order to be paid by the end of the month.
Right.
But that doesn't always happen.
No. So for argument's sake, if you worked several days within June, you would put your invoice in by, for argument's sake, the 7th of July, and then potentially get paid by the end of July.
That's correct,
Yes.
Yeah.
And
after it's been verified by the exams officer and the head of department or wherever.
Yes, it's gone through. Yes, you can't just put what you fancy.
No.
No. So it's going to go through the. I'm actually quite impressed. It could even all be done in 3 weeks, to be honest, because it's quite a lengthy kind of verification process that would go through. But that's great. So you just have to put your own invoice in. And because we are talking about relatively small amounts of money, it's probably not going to impact. You're not going to have to worry about your own sort of tax and things like that. If you did, would you do that through an accountant, or you do work that?
Well, I did, because there are various jobs I had in addition to that.
Yes.
I don't now. Literally this year is the first year that I've decided to do my own tax return.
Right.
I have to do a self-assessment.
Yes.
But when the invoice goes through, I don't pay national insurance contributions on that, but I do pay income tax.
Oh, they just automatically take it for you.
Yeah,
so sometimes potentially you could be getting a tax rebate rather than paying tax then.
Have yet to get a tax rebate.
Okay, we'll gloss over that one. Yes, no, I was just, just thinking how it would work potentially. So they are almost putting you on a PAYE then, and they are taking the money from you, and then, yes, maybe with your other jobs it kind of balances out. So just quickly, as I do admire you, Charles, because you have kind of lots of little jobs you do rather than one big job, which I personally love, because I'm the same. I struggle to do the same thing every day. So you do your invigilating on an as and when basis.
Yeah.
Give me a flavour for something else that you might do to fill your valuable time.
Right. Well, I work at a castle,
right,
as what they call sort of visitor operations staff, which is basically hospitality. So I could
visitors operational staff.
Operational staff.
Right.
But I did that in order to earn some income to do direct sales when I was doing that.
Right.
And also I did it in order to do. They have an acting group there at the castle who are employed for events like Christmas, whereby they'll have actors and elves and Mother Christmas, Father Christmas. I specifically wanted to be Father Christmas at Hever Castle.
Right.
Yeah. So having done it before at a garden centre which a friend of mine used to run.
Right. So your alarm bells ring for me with things like being Father Christmas now. So presumably again one needs to be DBS checked. Is there anything else? Is there again a list of procedures, or is it sort of pretty much common sense?
It's common sense, but there's being Father Christmas I find it very, very tiring but extremely rewarding. Sure. It makes my Christmas, because every child is different, every parent is different. You might have a little bit of a script to work to, but you're thinking on your feet the whole time, and you've got loads of things to get through in a short space of time, because it's hugely oversubscribed.
So are you given a certain amount of minutes with each? Effectively,
but it depends on the size of the group, the number of children, and obviously in that time you experience all different things happen, and you've got to give them an appropriate time to have a photograph taken, the age-related appropriate present given to them, cater for their needs, show them what to do, and all within a short space of time.
Yes, I think things have changed. I mean, we have to initially point out that the real Father Christmas is in the North Pole actually doing his job. So he doesn't have time to be in all of these garden centres and all of these castles at the same time. So
can I just add, I am the real Father Christmas.
No. So special people are gathered. You have to be a very special person to be a temporary Father Christmas, but the real one is in the North Pole with his real elves, and anybody that is in any of the garden centres or castles or wherever are very kind people that are helping Father Christmas.
They're sustaining that magic, yes.
Absolutely, you are so sustaining that magic. And again, as you say, you are having to think on your feet, because different things are coming up and you are going to have to be politically correct. There's only so much, I assume, that you can say or do in that role, and they give you presumably sacks of male, female, age or something to pick the presents from, do they? Or there's no difference between the sexes, right,
but there are for the ages,
right,
and you've got to obviously find out who the children are and get. It's making the experience special for the children and for the parents, which is different.
Yes.
But making it fun, and it'll depend on how old the child is.
Yes. And what I was going to go on to say was, when I was a child, the queue went round the buildings. You know, you could be queuing for 6 hours. I was very privileged that my mum always used to take me to Harrods, and we knew the queue would be, we'd get there in the morning and we'd be lucky if we saw Santa in the afternoon. But I know these things have become far more automated now, where again, one needs digital skills to go online and book your place. Sometimes these queues open in August, and by September or October, all of the slots are gone, which is...
Well, at Hever, they're open for 2 days in September, and they're fully booked.
Gosh.
So you can't get in.
No.
It normally goes straight to the annual members to start off with, and then it goes out to the general public.
Yes.
And there's so many spaces that get filled so quickly.
So quickly. Yes, I've heard this of a lot of places that, you know, it just fills up immediately, which in one way I find sad, because I think the magic of Christmas, you know, sometimes parents aren't thinking that far in advance and it's difficult, but it does at least manage the crowds, doesn't it? You cannot have people standing for hours on end, can you?
So it's very professional. There is hardly any waiting time, and they have cut-offs, so you've got to be there and ready and prepared. And there's loads of other things that they get involved in at the grotto.
Lovely.
There'll be workshops, there'll be actors working on the trail.
Yes.
There's lights, there's ancillary things going on. It's not just Santa, but that's the icing on the cake.
Absolutely, it is the icing on the cake, isn't it? Yes, I think, but again, as I say, it does draw me back to this thought that digital skills have become so integral in our lives now that just being able to book for it, potentially pay for it online, and now with dual authentication it can be quite complicated. You try and put your credit card in and it says that it's going to send you a text or an email. You've got to flip to that, find the code, put it in. Things can be quite complicated, especially maybe if English isn't your first language and this whole experience is something quite alien to you. It can be quite a hop, skip and a jump to get to that point, can't it?
Very much so.
So yes, it's very interesting how our lives have changed over the years. So you do a bit of invigilating, which is working with children, and you do some of this acting that's working with children. So it's all of these little ad hoc things, I guess, sort of build up to, you know, potentially a few hours a week or however much you want to work, does it? Or
at the moment,
or are you still looking for more little add-on jobs?
I have other add-on jobs, but I'm definitely trying to get my work balance better for the new year.
Yes.
So hospitality invariably works antisocial hours because it's the social time for other people.
Yes.
But I want to get my work-life balance sorted so that I reduce the number of hours I'm working, and it's working more for me, which I have done. It just so happens, obviously, leading up to Christmas, obviously with Santa, I'll be very busy.
Yes, and presumably in January there will be some mock exams that you might be doing.
Later on in February, and I have to wait until one of my other jobs is a sort of landscaping gardening job, which obviously is for the finer weather because I prefer working outside.
Yes. Well, I'm in huge awe of you, Charles, because I do think that having lots of little jobs, whilst it can be a little bit more sort of anxiety inducing for some people if they've got a mortgage or rent to pay and bills to pay. Not quite having a regular salary every month can be a huge worry. But if you've had, you know, permanent employment for many years and potentially there'll be a pension attached to that which gives you sort of security for the future, then what a lovely way to lead your life.
Hopefully.
To do all these different things, and to say it just feeds different parts of our soul, really, doesn't
exactly.
it?
That's what life's all about. Enjoyment.
Absolutely, it is. Definitely. It is. Oh, well, thank you so much for talking
You're welcome.
Charles. I've really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
For help with all your job searching needs, do visit one of our digital drop-in venues. On a Monday, we are open 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. at our Poveris Centre, and on a Tuesday, we are open 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at our Kentwood Centre. In our sessions, we offer free use of computers for job searching, advice on creating a winning CV, plus lots of short training courses to gain skills in the digital world.
This podcast has been produced by Bromley Adult Education College. For full details of how we can support your return to work, visit our website www.baec.ac.uk and search for Digital Drop-In. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast to receive notifications of new episodes.